Hi guys, welcome back to Sacred Vedic Astrology. My name is Samantha and I am so blessed and so lucky to be a professional Vedic astrologer. So, today I want to go into the topic of why Vedic astrology. Why unravel your Vedic astrological chart? Why study Vedic astrology? Why be a student of jyotisha? Why watch Vedic astrology videos, right? What is the purpose and the power of Vedic astrology? Because that is a great question. So, the first thing I want to talk about when we are discussing Vedic astrology is it is vastly different than Western astrology. So, we have to forget everything that we've understood about Western astrology and put it into a box, right? Like, take that, put it away, and understand that Jyotish is a completely different system of astrology. And it's really about our karmas, our dharmas, our purpose, our path, right? There's a lot of depth to Vedic astrology. It's not a psychological analysis of, someone's a Libra, they like art. It's not like that, okay? And I'm not saying that there aren't great Western astrologers or that people aren't using Western astrology in a great way. That's not what I'm saying. But a lot of people want to take the understanding of Western astrology and bring it into Hindu astrology, and it's completely different, right? It's a completely different system. It's like taking geometry and trying to fit it into algebra, right? They're completely different systems of math. Okay. So when we're going into Jyotisha, the first thing that I always, tell people is it's very sacred. There's a reason why my name is Sacred Vedic Astrology, because to me, I find Jyotisha to be very, very sacred and I take it very seriously. So I try not to use it in any sort of way that is silly or lighthearted or, oh, this person has this sun sign, they're a bad person, or they're, it's not like that. We have to be very respectful of the ancient art and science and practice of Vedic astrology, okay? Because it is very sacred and it's very divine. It's the divine science of light, all right? So the reason it's so important to understand our Vedic astrological chart is because it's important to understand how we can evolve and clear a lot of our old karma and our old patterns in this lifetime, right? So I always think about those people that come into this lifetime and they do the same thing over and over again. And they never really evolve and they never move into this, new incarnation, because we're here to evolve. We're here to learn our karmic lessons. We're here to unravel our karma and our trauma and our, darker aspects of ourselves so we can step into, this higher evolution of who we're meant to be, right? And without the sort of understanding of what your karma is, without the understanding of what your purpose is, without the understanding of what you are here to unravel and work through, how can we even actually get there until we understand it in the first place, right? So I see Jyotish as this, science. It is a science that will get us to that place a lot quicker, okay? And I'm not against therapy. I think therapy is great for so many people, and I love therapy as a modality. But one thing that I will say is that through Vedic astrology, we can get answers that could take people a really long time to unravel in therapy. So, for example, if someone comes to like a 1-hour consultation of Vedic astrology, they'll get so much of these things they need to work through and unravel in their trauma and their karma and all these things that could take people years in traditional therapy to unravel, right? And I've even had clients where I'll pull up their chart and within 30 minutes I've told them things and they're like, I always talk about this in therapy, or I just said that in therapy. And it's not that Jyotish is better than therapy. That's not what I'm saying at all. But it gets us there quicker. It pinpoints the issue at a quicker rate, because we don't have to sit for hours upon hours to unravel it. We can open this chart and see it within an hour, right? That's the beauty of Jyotish, is it's very quick. If you know how to properly read Vedic charts, you're gonna see someone's karma. You're gonna see their trauma. You're gonna see their issues. You're gonna see their psychological, let's say, wounding, right? That is carried over with them, and how to get there a lot quicker. Okay. And so that's really powerful. It's powerful to get there in a way that's just quick, all right? We don't have to spend years in therapy. We can open someone's Vedic astrology chart and say, hey, these are all the issues that I'm seeing. How you move forward and work through them, that's where the therapy comes in. That's where the other modalities come in, right? So it's sort of this roadmap of how to get to our highest evolution in this lifetime. And it's really, really powerful, right? So we can open a Vedic chart, pinpoint the issues, pinpoint the karmic issues that are coming up, and then someone can take that next step in their life to work through it and work on it from that point, okay? Jyotisha is also known as the science of light. Why? Because it's shining and shedding light onto things that may be dark or unconscious in some way. So if we think about shining light on a Vedic chart, right, you can open the chart and see a lot of things that are very, very deep rooted, right? We can see issues with addiction. We can see issues with sexual abuse. We can see issues with career issues. It's all there, right? And I always talk about my own chart just to give you guys examples of how it's manifested in my life. But my chart is truly a mess for any other career except Vedic astrology. And I think it's so funny because, as I went throughout my life and I tried different career paths, if I tried to work a normal job, it never worked out. It never worked out because my chart is full of so much karma around my career. I have Saturn conjunct Ketu in my 10th house, D9 Navamsha, 10th house Lord in the 12th house. It's all spiritual. Like my career has to be spiritual in this lifetime. And that's how my whole life has unraveled. Like anytime I tried to do any other job, it would end, the place would close, something so strange would happen that would force me into a Moshka career. And the only career I've ever actually, felt connected to has been a Moshka career, being an astrologer, being a healer, I worked for a while as an energy healer, and that was so aligned for me. It was instantaneously aligned because that is in my dharma and my karma and my chart, okay? And someone could pull up my Vedic chart and see that within an hour, right? I could spend a year in therapy asking, how do I get to a successful career? And I don't know, I just feel like my career, and I could talk about it for years, right? Or we could pull up the Vedic astrological chart and we could get to the issue in an hour. And we could say, hey, you know what? You should actually go towards a spiritual career. And that would have helped me vastly when I was younger, okay? So that's the power of Jyotisha, is we're getting to the root of the issue very quickly, and then we're giving solutions and remedies, etc. Okay? And the power of Vedic astrology or Jyotisha is also the understanding that you get of not only your own karma and what you're unraveling and working through and clearing in this lifetime, but also other people's karma, other people's paths, other people's purpose, and how different that is from your own. Right? It also sheds away a lot of that judgment because you can look at someone's chart and go, oh no, this person is actually meant to be that very powerful CEO or that powerful leader or that powerful person who's working a more traditional path, etc. That's their path. That's not my path, but that's their path, right? And you can see that in the Vedic astrological chart as well too. This is kind of a funny example, but, if any Vedic astrologer has absolutely studied Donald Trump's chart, best believe it, that man has the chart of someone who absolutely has to be in power and has to be seen and has to be famous and all those things, right? And I'm not saying I agree with his path or agree with him as a person, but when you pull up his chart and you look at that, you're like, God, that's his path, right? That's what he's here to work towards. Can there be better ways to channel it? Yes, absolutely. But that's just the way it is in his chart and in this lifetime for him. It's about power. It's about fame. It's about seeking that material success. It's about being seen. It's about being in the spotlight. That's how his dharma is unraveling in his Vedic chart. Okay? Another example is we see charts of really famous, artists, writers, some of the greatest people of our generation, and they're going to have really powerful artistic charts. It's their path, it's their purpose, it's their dharma, and they're here to live it and walk it in this lifetime, right? One of my favorite charts to analyze has always been Jim Morrison's chart, because he has such a powerful Venus, and he has the Mulavaya Yoga, he has Venus in the 10th in Libra, and he has the Mulavaya Yoga from not only Lagna or Ascendant, but also flipping it from Chandra Lagna, which makes that Mahaprasha Yoga even more powerful and potent. And he was a Venus through and through. His whole life was Venus, right? And so if he wanted to go into like different fields of, work, it wouldn't have worked out for him, right? Like he was meant to be an artist. And if he came to me for a Vedic analysis, I'd be like, you should go towards the arts, right? And that's what I'm saying. Like, it's just powerful to pinpoint someone's path in a way that is very clear, it's very quick, and it's very concise, right? And that's not to say that Vedic astrology in any way is simple or easy. Absolutely not. It's probably the hardest thing I've ever studied in my entire lifetime. And I'm still going to study it every day. I study jyotisha every single day because it is a dedication. And it's really important to me to be the best Vedic astrologer I can be. I'm always learning. I'm always growing. I'm a lifelong student of jyotisha. But it's not to say it's easy to get those answers, but when you know how to do Vedic astrology, we can get there much more streamlined and much more quickly than a lot of other modalities. I'm telling you guys, I could have gone to talk therapy for 2 years and tried to figure out, like, why is my career, like, let's say when I was younger, why is my career always so blocked and I could never figure out my career path, right? I could have talked about that for years and never gotten to an answer, right? Or I could have gone to a Vedic astrologer and they would have been like, hey, like, your work is going to be really weird unless you do a spiritual career. Done. We could have gotten there in an hour, baby. It's like that. It's like that. The other really potent and powerful part of Vedic astrology is the dashas and the transits. Okay, it's so validating when you're going through a tough experience to know the reason you're going through this is because of this, is because of this, is because of this. And this is going to end at this point, and this cycle is going to close at this point. Do you know how powerful that is, guys? Like, if you're going through sati sati, you are going to feel absolutely out of your mind, depression, anxiety, fears, etc., until someone explains to you sati sati, right? If you are coming into a Rahu dasha and someone explains to you what it's like to enter a Rahu dasha, you're going to have clarity around the experiences that you're having, all right? So I see Vedic astrology as confirmation and validation of your experiences, right? And there's like nothing more powerful than that, because in this lifetime, I always say this, I'm like, I always gaslight myself, right? And I think as humans, like, we are naturally always gaslighting ourselves into thinking like, no, maybe that experience wasn't this, or maybe I'm not actually this, and blah, 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 right? It's like we have all these weird subconscious things that come up where we're always trying to convince ourselves of this or that, or it's just in our nature to doubt ourselves, to doubt our path, gaslight ourselves into thinking, maybe I'm not meant to be this, maybe I'm not this, maybe blah, 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 and it's like Vedic astrology is going to confirm for you, no, this is your path. This is what you're experiencing through the transits. This synastry is karmic. It's like that. It's like that. And the thing as well, too, about the power of transits and dasha sequences is, again, we can spend years in therapy trying to unravel why we're going through a dark night of the soul. Why is this? Why is this? Why is that? And, a personal anecdote, which I do like to share because I like to make, these videos and this content relatable and personal as well, too. When I was living in New York when I was younger and I was going to art school and I was trying to be an artist and I was going through the depths of sati sati, okay? And I wasn't having success in anything, creatively or artistically. And I was like, God, like things just feel so heavy, right? Because Saturn was over my natal moon in the 8th house, which is one of the heaviest sati houses that you can be hit with. The 8th house is psychology, mental health, all of those things. And it led me to like briefly see this therapist, and she put me on this medication. It was like anxiety medication. And I was like, okay, well, maybe this is the thing that's going to help. It didn't help anything because it wasn't getting to the roots of the energetics of what was going on, right? Like sati is all about clearing out old things karmically. It's about, healing through certain issues. And there was a specific 8th house issue that I was not getting to the root of, all right? So I was trying to avoid and escape, and I was drinking a lot and I was partying a lot. And I was falling into a lot of very unhealthy patterns in addiction and escapism and all of those things because I was doing the opposite of sati, like the exact opposite of sati, okay? And if I had a Vedic astrologer at that point sit me down and be like, okay, you're going through sati, it's transiting your 8th house, don't go into addictions. This is what you should do. It would have vastly changed that whole entire experience, guys. Like, truly. It really would have. It would have been very helpful, and it would have helped me actually get into a positive place. All right? It had to happen that way, right? Like, of course it did, because I have a natal 8th house moon. I'm always having to go through those intense experiences to help other people through it. But it was very intense, right? Like, I was very young. I was like, Jesus, I'm already in a Rahu dasha. And now I'm hit with sati in my 8th house. Like, Lord, here we're going on a crazy roller coaster ride, right? But also because Saturn and the moon was going over my 8th house of metaphysics, I actually stumbled into a transcendental meditation center by accident. And I got really into meditation at that time. And I started getting obsessed with metaphysics. And I would, be at my school, and I was supposed to be studying art, and I was supposed to be doing my photography courses, and I would just escape into the library, and I would pull out all these books on astrology and palm reading and witchcraft. And everyone I knew was like, oh, Sammy, she's just in the library reading her astrology books, because it was also my 8th house of astrology and metaphysics. And it really pushed me into the path that I had to go down. Okay. But the reason I feel like it's important to share that is because I didn't have like the conscious awareness of jyotisha to understand what was going on transit-wise, right? Someone could have explained to me in an hour, you're going through sati in your 8th house. Okay, it's a deeply psychological, transformational time period. Don't use it to escape, use it to embody your spiritual gifts in some regard, right? And that's what I was essentially getting to, but it took me a long time to get there. Okay. Another example is if someone is, hit by a bunch of K2 energy in their chart, they're going to feel that drained energy, but they're also going to feel very spiritually inclined at those time periods, and they're not going to understand why that's all happening until they have the awareness that Vedic astrology brings, right? That's what Vedic astrology is. It's awareness, and it is this divine science that is shining light on the aspects that we don't understand, okay? I don't really believe in the word enlightenment personally, because I don't think that anyone actually gets enlightened. I mean, maybe there's a few, right? There's been some like great masters, the Buddhas and the whatever of our lifetime that have gotten to maybe quote unquote enlightenment. But what I will say is Vedic astrology gets us closer to that place of understanding. Okay? Because unless you understand something, how can you work with it and how can you work through it, right? There's a lot of power, guys, in Vedic astrology. And, the reason why I am so passionate about Vedic astrology over Western astrology is not from a place of ego. It's not from a place of this system is better than that system. It's because I lived Western astrology my whole life. I started studying it when I was 12 or 13 years old. And although it was fun and although it was, informative and helpful for certain parts and certain aspects, it never actually got me to that place of like deep, deep understanding of my karma and my purpose and my path until I switched over to the Vedic system. It really changed everything for me moving into Vedic astrology out of Western astrology. And even though I studied Western astrology my whole life, I never did it professionally because I didn't feel like it was something that I could actually give to the world and feel like, oh, I'm giving something that I truly believe is going to help people. Okay, and so I never did Western astrology professionally, actually. But the second I started studying Vedic astrology, I was like, oh my God, like this is, God, essentially. And I know that's dramatic. I have Venus-Mars conjunction, baby. I am dramatic. But to me, Vedic astrology is this divine, godly science. And I always say this, but like when I open a Vedic chart, I feel like I'm opening a direct line to God because I feel like it's just, I can't really explain it in words properly, but it feels like something that is shedding all the sort of universal divine knowledge that someone needs at that time. And it's just there and it's channeling through you. And it's the coolest thing ever, actually. It's really, really the coolest thing. And again, I take Vedic astrology very, very seriously. It's not something that's fun to me. It's not something that's silly to me. It's not about any sort of personality, putting someone into a box of, oh, you have this sun sign, you're like this. You have this nakshatra, you're like this. It's not like that, okay? And we have to stay away from those modes of astrology because that is the westernized world and the Western culture trying to take something that is vastly sacred and very, very ancient and trying to put it into some commercialized box. Okay? So it's important to try to stay away from those aspects of astrology because it's not, like I get it, it's kind of fun to engage in, but it's not real astrology. Okay? Because if you are actually someone who studies Vedic astrology, you know how deeply complex of a system this is. And, you can study it for 10 years and not even get the full grasp or understanding of all these concepts of Vedic astrology. Okay? And another thing as well, too, is you can learn and study so much in Vedic astrology. It's an endless study, but you learn the most when you're actually doing charts and you're seeing how things unravel and unfold. So there's certain things that like I'll take in Vedic astrology and I'll be like, okay, this always works, or this works 90% of the time, or this works 80% of the time. Then there's other little tricks or yogas or whatever it is that I'm like, this isn't really working. So you have to also see it as a practical science as well, too. That is here to help people on the physical. Like, yes, it's a divine science and it's coming from that divine place and you can feel it. Like if you do jyotisha, you can feel when you open a chart how divine it is, where you're like, oh my God, woo, it's really powerful. But we're channeling it from that divine place, but we're bringing it into the physical reality, right? So it's important for it to be logical and practical and useful as well, too. Okay. So yeah, Vedic astrology is so important. It is so, so important. And no, it's not going to be everyone's calling to go towards Vedic astrology. No, it's not going to be everyone's calling to be a student of jyotisha. No, it's not going to be everyone's calling to read their transits or to understand their dasha sequence. No, it's not going to be everyone's calling to watch Vedic astrology content. Because again, we all have such different paths. But if you do feel that calling to it, there is so much power in it. And I can, confidently say that Vedic astrology changed my whole entire life, like truly did, and helped me so much to unravel a lot of my karma and subconscious patterns and things that didn't serve me and relationships that didn't serve me when I could see the synastry and I'm like, oh Lord, here we go, I always remember this funny moment. And again, I have a strong Jupiter. I just have to bring in some, lighthearted fun stuff as well too. But I remember I was dating this guy and I pulled up his chart and we had K2 Venus synastry. And I was like, oh, well, this is never going to last. And this was like the second time that we hung out. And he's like, no, like, we're going to get married, blah, blah, blah. And I'm looking at this chart. I'm like, sir, we are not getting married in this lifetime. So it's just funny. It's that, it's that understanding and that validation you get from Vedic astrology where it's like, I feel this and I know this in my soul, but here is this chart and this physical manifestation that is confirming everything I feel to be true. Okay? So that is the beauty of jyotisha, and it's truly something so sacred, so divine, so magical. And I do think it's in my purpose to, spread the knowledge of Vedic astrology as opposed to Western astrology, especially as someone who lives in the Western world and has always loved Eastern philosophy, Eastern culture. It's always been the thing I've been most drawn to. If we want to look at past lives, let's say I've spent a lot of past lives in different places. Nothing feels more familiar to me, guys, than Egypt, okay? So anyways, that's a story for a different time. But it is really bringing that tradition into the Western world and bringing it in a way that is respectful, which is the most important thing to me, is to respect Vedic astrology and bringing it in a way that is useful and practical. So not scaring people when they have a Kala Sarpa yoga and telling them they killed a pregnant snake in a past life, right? Or giving them a bunch of gemstones and you have to do this mantra. Do I think mantras are powerful? Yes. But not from a place of fear as well too. So I also try to really bring in my practice in a way that is helpful and useful and also empowering as well. All right. We'll talk soon, guys. Sending all the love.